Have you ever felt like you're surrounded by people, yet completely alone? Like you're speaking a different language, even when everyone around you is speaking the same words? You scroll through social media, seeing friends gathering, laughing, living what looks like the perfect social life. And you wonder, what's wrong with me? Here's the thing, and this might sting a little: nothing is wrong with you. In fact, according to the 19th century philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, if you find yourself with few close friends, it might actually be a sign of something most people spend their entire lives pretending to have: genuine intelligence. Before you click away thinking this is just another "I'm too smart for friends" excuse video, stay with me. Because what Schopenhauer discovered about friendship, loneliness, and the brutal reality of human connection will probably explain more about your life than you're comfortable admitting. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your Friday nights alone might not be a problem to fix, but a reality to embrace. Let me ask you something personal, and be honest with yourself, even if you'd never admit this out loud. When was the last time you had a conversation that actually mattered? Not small talk about the weather, not gossip about mutual acquaintances, not surface-level complaints about work, but a real conversation that left you feeling understood? If you're struggling to remember, you're not alone. And that's exactly where Schopenhauer's philosophy becomes uncomfortably relevant. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brutally honest philosophers who ever lived, had a simple observation that society has spent 2 centuries trying to ignore. Intelligent people are fundamentally incompatible with most of humanity. Now, before you think I'm being elitist, let me be clear. This isn't about IQ scores or academic degrees. This is about something deeper, about how you process the world, what you find meaningful, and what you absolutely cannot tolerate in your relationships. Think about your own life for a moment. Have you noticed these patterns? You're in a group conversation, and everyone's laughing at something you find not offensive, just empty. Meanwhile, the observation you made 5 minutes ago, something you thought was genuinely interesting, was met with blank stares and a quick subject change. You've had friends drift away, not because of a fight or a falling out, but because you simply couldn't sustain interest in the things they wanted to talk about. Sports scores, celebrity drama, office politics. The same stories recycled and reheated week after week. You've caught yourself pretending, forcing laughter, nodding along, playing the part of normal social person, while inside, your mind is screaming, is this really all there is? Schopenhauer would tell you, you're not broken. You're not antisocial. You're just experiencing the natural consequence of having a mind that operates differently than most. In his essay on the suffering of the world, Schopenhauer wrote something that might hit too close to home. The more a man possesses in himself, the less he needs from the outside. Translation? The richer your inner life, your thoughts, your interests, your capacity for deep reflection, the less you'll find satisfying company in the shallow waters where most people swim. But here's where it gets interesting. Schopenhauer didn't just observe this phenomenon, he explained why it happens. And his reasoning might fundamentally change how you see your own social struggles. Picture this. You're walking through a desert, desperately thirsty. You come across other travelers, and you ask them, "Where's the water?" They look at you, confused, and say, "Water? Why would we need water? Look at all this sand. Isn't it beautiful?" This is what it feels like to be an intelligent person seeking meaningful connection in a world that doesn't value depth. Schopenhauer identified what he called the poverty of the ordinary mind. And no, this wasn't him being cruel. It was an observation about capability and interest. Most people, he argued, simply don't have the capacity or the desire for the kind of conversations that intelligent people crave. Let me get personal here, because maybe you've experienced exactly this. You meet someone new. The conversation starts well enough. Then you venture into territory that interests you, maybe philosophy, maybe the implications of new technology, maybe the underlying patterns you've noticed in human behavior. And you watch their eyes. You see the exact moment they check out, the polite smile. That means they're just waiting for their turn to change the subject back to something comfortable. It's not that they're stupid. They're just operating on a different frequency. Schopenhauer put it bluntly. The wise have always said the same things, and fools, who are the majority, have always done the opposite. Harsh? Maybe? Accurate? If you've been paying attention to humanity, probably. Here's what happens when an intelligent person tries to maintain friendships with those who don't share their depth of thinking. First, you simplify yourself. You learn which topics are acceptable and which make people uncomfortable. You become an editor of your own thoughts, cutting out anything too complex, too questioning, too real. Second, you exhaust yourself. Every social interaction becomes a performance. You're not being yourself. You're being the version of yourself that won't make others feel inadequate or confused. Third, you withdraw. Because if the choice is between pretending or being alone, at least being alone is honest. Schopenhauer noticed that intelligent people naturally gravitate toward solitude, not because they hate people, but because solitude is preferable to the alternative. He wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free." Think about that. When was the last time you felt truly free in a social setting? Not performing, not monitoring, not editing, just free? For most intelligent people, the answer is never, or at least rarely. But here's the part that nobody talks about. This isolation isn't just about not finding the right people. It's about something more fundamental, something Schopenhauer understood better than almost anyone. There's a reason ignorance is called bliss, and there's a reason intelligence, when you really think about it, often feels like a curse. Intelligent people see patterns. They see contradictions. They see the gap between what people say and what they do. They see the comfortable lies everyone agrees to believe. And once you see these things, you can't unsee them. This is what Schopenhauer called the burden of consciousness. Let me give you an example that might make you uncomfortable. You're at a dinner party. Someone's telling a story, an inspiring story, about how they overcame adversity through positive thinking and determination. Everyone's nodding. Everyone's moved. And you're seeing the survivorship bias. You're seeing the privilege they're not acknowledging. You're seeing the pattern of human psychology, where we create narratives that make us feel in control of our lives. Do you say something? No, because you learned long ago that pointing out patterns people don't want to see makes you negative, cynical, too much. So you smile. You nod, and you feel that familiar isolation creeping in. Schopenhauer observed that intelligence increases suffering because it increases awareness. The more you understand about human nature, about society, about the machinery of existence itself, the harder it becomes to participate in the collective delusions that make social life smooth. Most people bond over shared beliefs. Intelligent people bond over shared questioning. And guess which one is rarer? But here's where Schopenhauer gets even more brutal. He argued that friendship itself, for most people, is fundamentally transactional and superficial. In his work, Counsels and Maxims, he wrote, "We can come to look upon the deaths of our enemies with as much regret as we feel for those of our friends, namely, when we miss their existence as witnesses to our success." In other words, people don't value friends for deep connection. They value them as an audience, as mirrors reflecting back a version of themselves they want to see. Think about your own friendships, past and present. How many were based on genuine mutual understanding versus convenience, proximity, or mutual benefit? The intelligent person who realizes this faces a horrible choice. Participate in these shallow arrangements while knowing exactly what they are, or refuse to play the game and accept isolation. Most choose isolation, not because they're antisocial, but because they're honest. And this honesty, this inability to pretend that small talk is connection, that having 500 Facebook friends means anything, that showing up to events you hate is maintaining relationships. This is what ultimately separates the intelligent from the crowd. Schopenhauer would say you're not being difficult. You're being awake. And unfortunately, most people are desperately trying to stay asleep. Now we get to the heart of why this matters. Why you can't just work on your social skills or put yourself out there more and magically find your tribe. Schopenhauer identified what I call the incompatibility principle. The depth of your mind determines the shallowness of your pool of potential friends. And authenticity in your friendships, you've just eliminated, what, 90% of people? 95%? More? And here's the cruel part. The more intelligent you are, the smaller that pool becomes. It's not snobbery. It's statistics. Imagine you need someone who can discuss abstract ideas without getting uncomfortable, doesn't fill every silence with noise, reads something longer than a tweet occasionally, questions societal norms instead of blindly following them, can handle disagreement without taking it personally, doesn't need constant external validation. How many people do you know who meet even half these criteria? Schopenhauer put it simply, ordinary people merely think how they shall spend their time. A man of talent tries to use it. This isn't about how you spend your time in terms of productivity. It's about consciousness itself. Intelligent people are aware of their lives in a way most people aren't. They're not just living. They're examining, questioning, analyzing. And you can't form a deep friendship with someone who's sleepwalking through existence when you're wide awake. I know what some of you are thinking, but I know intelligent people with lots of friends. Sure, and if you look closer, you'll usually find one of three things. 1, they're extremely good at compartmentalizing. They have their social friends for surface level interaction and maybe 1 or 2 people they can actually talk to. 2, they're performing. They've mastered the art of seeming normal, but it exhausts them, and they often fantasize about canceling plans. 3, they've found a rare community of similarly intelligent people, and they guard it fiercely because they know how statistically improbable it is. But for most intelligent people, the reality is simpler and lonelier. You have acquaintances. You have people you can tolerate in small doses. You might even have people you genuinely like. But deep friendship, the kind where you can be completely yourself, where conversations energize rather than drain you, where you don't have to translate your thoughts into acceptable mainstream language, that's rare. And according to Schopenhauer, that's not a bug. It's a feature. Because here's what he understood. Quality of connection is inversely proportional to quantity of connections. The person with 100 friends has 100 shallow connections. The person with 2 friends might have 2 genuine ones. Schopenhauer chose solitude. Deliberately, he wrote, "A man can be happy in any circumstances if he is content with himself. Not content despite being alone, but content with being alone. Content with your own mind, your own thoughts, your own company." This is where the philosophy gets radical. What if having few friends isn't a problem to solve, but a natural consequence of being the kind of person worth knowing? Let's talk about something you probably don't admit, even to yourself. How exhausting it is to pretend. Every intelligent person who's tried to maintain a normal social life knows this feeling. You're at a party, a gathering, a casual hangout, and you're acting. Not in a dishonest way, necessarily. Just in a filtered way. You're running a constant background process in your mind. Is this too intense? Is this too weird? Will this make them uncomfortable? Schopenhauer saw through this performance. He understood that society functions on a set of agreed-upon fictions, and intelligent people can see that they're fictions. But seeing them and participating in them at the same time creates a kind of existential split. You become two people, the one who knows and the one who pretends not to know. This is what I call the social performance trap, and here's how it works. Stage 1. Adaptation. You're young, maybe in school or college. You notice you're different, but you want to fit in, so you learn to adapt. You study social interactions like a foreign language. You learn what topics are safe, what jokes land, what opinions won't get you ostracized. Stage 2. Success. You get good at it. Maybe even really good. People think you're one of them. You have friends, social invitations, a seemingly normal life. From the outside, you're winning. Stage 3. Exhaustion. But inside, something's breaking. Every interaction drains you. You need recovery time after socializing. You start canceling plans. You feel guilty about wanting to be alone, but you crave it desperately. Stage 4. Awakening. You realize what Schopenhauer knew. You're not tired because you're an introvert. You're tired because you're pretending to be someone simpler than you are, and it's killing you. Stage 5. Choice. You decide. Keep performing and stay exhausted, or stop performing and accept isolation. Most intelligent people bounce between stages 4 and 5 their entire lives. They know the performance is unsustainable, but they're terrified of the alternative. Schopenhauer would tell you, choose isolation. Choose yourself. Choose authenticity over acceptance. He wrote, "A man must swallow a toad every morning to be sure of not meeting with anything more revolting in the day." For intelligent people, that toad is often the forced smile, the feigned interest, the pretense that yes, you absolutely care about whatever trivial thing everyone else is worked up about. But here's the liberation. Once you stop performing, something incredible happens. You stop attracting people who never really knew you anyway. You stop wasting energy on connections that were always going to be temporary. You create space, rare, precious space, for the possibility of real connection. Will that space always be filled? No, often it won't be. But Schopenhauer would argue that authentic solitude is infinitely preferable to inauthentic companionship. And if you're being honest with yourself, you know he's right. Here's where we get to the part that might actually change your life. Everything I've said so far might sound depressing. Intelligent people are isolated. They can't find meaningful connections. They're doomed to loneliness. But Schopenhauer didn't see it that way, and neither should you. Because solitude for the intelligent person isn't a punishment. It's a gift. Think about what you do when you're alone. Really alone. Not lonely, but genuinely alone with your thoughts. You read. You think. You create. You explore ideas that interest you without having to justify or explain them. You follow your curiosity wherever it leads. You become more yourself, not less. Schopenhauer wrote, "The greatest minds are capable of the greatest vices as well as of the greatest virtues, and those who walk slowly, if they follow the straight path, can get much further than those who run and get lost." In other words, you're not in a race to have the most friends. You're on a path to have the most meaningful life. And those two goals are often opposite. Every hour you spend in forced social interaction is an hour you're not spending on what actually matters to you. Every party you attend out of obligation is time stolen from your real interests. Every shallow friendship you maintain is energy drained from your capacity for depth. Schopenhauer didn't just tolerate solitude, he celebrated it. He saw it as the natural state of the developed mind. But, and this is crucial, he distinguished between solitude and loneliness. Loneliness is feeling isolated despite your desire for connection. It's painful, and it suggests something is missing. Solitude is choosing to be alone, because it's genuinely preferable to the alternative. It's peaceful, energizing, and productive. The intelligent person moved from loneliness to solitude when they stop seeing their lack of friends as a deficit and start seeing it as a preference. This doesn't mean you'll never feel lonely. It means you'll recognize that feeling lonely around others is worse than feeling temporarily lonely alone. Here's what Schopenhauer discovered, and what every intelligent person eventually learns. Your relationship with yourself is the only relationship that matters. Every other connection is secondary. If you cannot be content alone, you'll seek connection from a place of desperation, and you'll accept connections that don't serve you. You'll become one of those people with 1,000 acquaintances and 0 genuine friends. But if you master solitude, if you build a rich inner life, pursue your interests, develop your mind, then any friendship you form will be from abundance, not scarcity. And those friendships? They'll be real, rare, yes. Statistically unlikely, absolutely. But real. Schopenhauer had very few friends. By most standards, his social life was a failure. But he produced some of the most profound philosophical work in human history. He influenced everyone from Nietzsche to Freud to Einstein. Would he have achieved that with a bustling social calendar? With weekend barbecues and group chats and constant social obligations? Of course not. His isolation was the price he paid for his genius. And for him, it was a bargain. So let's come back to where we started. You feeling different, wondering what's wrong with you, comparing your Friday night alone to everyone else's seemingly perfect social lives. Here's Schopenhauer's brutal truth, and I need you to really hear this. Nothing is wrong with you. You don't have few friends because you're broken, awkward, or deficient. You have few friends because you require more from friendship than most people can give or want to receive. You're speaking a language most people don't understand. You're operating at a frequency most people can't hear. And rather than dumbing yourself down, rather than pretending to be satisfied with superficiality, you've chosen consciously or unconsciously to be alone. That's not a failure. That's integrity. But here's the part nobody tells you. This gets easier. Not because you'll suddenly find dozens of deep, meaningful friendships. You probably won't. The math doesn't change. It gets easier because you'll stop fighting it. You'll stop seeing your solitude as something to fix and start seeing it as something to optimize. You'll build a life that doesn't require constant social validation. You'll pursue interests that fascinate you, not because they'll impress others, but because they genuinely matter to you. You'll become so comfortable with your own mind that other people's company becomes an optional addition, not a necessary component. And when you meet someone, and you will, occasionally, meet someone who actually gets it, who speaks your language, who doesn't need you to translate your thoughts into acceptable mainstream, that connection will mean everything. It will be worth 100 shallow friendships. Schopenhauer spent most of his life alone. He died with few friends. But he also died having lived exactly as himself, having thought exactly what he wanted to think, having written exactly what he believed. He wasn't lonely. He was free. So here's my challenge to you. Stop trying to fix your social life. Stop forcing yourself to attend events you hate. Stop maintaining friendships that drain more than they give. Instead, ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped apologizing for who I am? What would you do with your time if you weren't wasting it on social obligations? What would you create, learn, or become if you fully embraced solitude instead of fighting it? Schopenhauer would tell you, the answer to those questions is where your real life begins. You're not too smart to have friends. You're too smart to waste your time on fake ones. And once you truly accept it, everything changes. The loneliness doesn't disappear completely, but it transforms. It becomes solitude. And solitude, for the intelligent mind, is where all the best things happen. Welcome to the desert, friend. It's lonely here, But the view? It's unlike anything most people will ever see. And maybe that's enough. If this resonated with you, if you felt this isolation and finally understand why, leave a comment. Not for the algorithm, but because I genuinely want to know. Are you still fighting your solitude, or have you learned to embrace it? And if you're still in the fighting stage, if you're still convinced something's wrong with you, watch this video again in 6 months. Because Schopenhauer's philosophy isn't something you understand once. It's something you return to again and again as you slowly realize he was right all along. Thanks for watching. Now go enjoy some solitude. You've earned it.